When we step off that solar maximum, it's going to be like an instant door flip change. And when we come down, they're going to have to hit us with another fear-based scatter pattern so we don't notice the next step up in electromagnetic difference. So these two for me are running in tandem. I'm looking at what kind of event can be bigger than COVID, because it's going to have to offset something electromagnetically larger than that period of time after those four gas giants aligned, after we swept through that. All these changes were happening across the world with our food production. Now our jet streams have gone further out of flow. I'm going to say it was very coincidental that the time that our magnetic field on the planet shifted to perception changes in the human mind based on electrical stimuli, at the same time that complete shattering of our world that put everybody into a tailspin and they didn't know what reality was, what was up, what was down. But at the same time of the intensification phase of a different magnetic field anomaly here on our planet, those two overlapped for those couple years. So, which one was wagging which dog? All I know is that our world was scattered. At the same time, a natural magnetic field anomaly from our sun would have scattered our world anyway in terms of thought and perception. Not awakening, but perception. So those two overlap to scatter through the perception wave, and now we're sort of at a stability for a moment. But again, you keep talking about the shock and awe of what a global financial crisis would be. So I would look at that as one point, but then I would also look at, okay, we're stepping off of solar maximum, and as we step into this minimum coming up, what happens with the magnetic field on the sun was tweaking and changing anyway, which affected the magnetic field on our Earth, declining at least 5% per decade, but some say more, and that's why they took swarm data offline. But as we step off into a lower magnetic field in solar activity anyway on the 11.8 year cycle, and we're coming into something again, they're going to have to scatter wave one more time because the perception of humans on this planet, like I say, your brain's an electrical device there. So if it's interfered with or changes, or the field state around it in which it exists perceives and absorbs information differently, like we're going to see through the illusion literally. And I think that's why at least that first wave of don't see through the illusion, we're going to keep you too busy with fear of the COVID. I think we're coming to something right now again here at the end of 2025, which is going to be very much similar. When we step off that solar maximum, it's going to be like an instant door flip change. And when we come down, they're going to have to hit us with another fear-based scatter pattern so we don't notice the next step up in electromagnetic difference. So these two for me are running in tandem. So I'm looking at what kind of event can be bigger than COVID that could, because it's going to have to offset something electromagnetically larger than that period of time after those four gas giants aligned, after we swept through that. All these changes were happening across the world with our food production. Now our jet streams have gone further out of flow, which is declining. And I've done a huge amount of research. I can't give the proprietary away, but I was front running the USDA by looking through world news headlines and pulling out 20% more crop loss in certain regions, and then basing that on the global totals of the country totals. And we're looking at 3 to 4% global decline in every grain crop across the planet this year. Rice, maybe 5%, oats, maybe 7%, but just in general, 4%. So that in itself is coming into the point now. Our world's being greatly affected by these electromagnetic changes off the sun. So how's the human being affected? And then step down further. Now, what kind of event in the human domain could now override all that awareness of that? The reason behind wrinkles isn't always in our control. It's more than about reducing stress or eating a healthy diet. As we age, our body's natural collagen production declines, which leads to visible signs of aging like wrinkles and sagging skin. In fact, studies show that after the age of 20, collagen production decreases by about 1% per year. That's why I use this amazing product, a premium supplement designed to replenish your body's collagen levels and combat the effects of aging. This unique formula uses the top 5 critically important types of collagen for skin health to help reduce visible signs of aging. Look your best with Ageless Multi-Collagen and place your order, well, it's 51% off today, only at healthwithadapt2030.com. Plus, you'll also receive free VIP live health and fitness coaching for life, a free ebook titled The 14 Foods for Amazing Skin, a 60-day satisfaction guarantee, and free shipping if you order now. Once again, this offer is only available at healthwithadapt2030.com. Click on that link in the description box below. And I think you hit it on the head here, this change for the economy that's coming in here. Now, I'll leave it right there for a second because I took notes the whole time you were talking. I got a bunch of bullet points I wanted to respond to about the Great Reset, the Great Taking. But see how I'm trying to overlap these two. It's not just specifically by itself an event because it's an event. It's an event to cover, mask, or ride on top of a natural event to get a greater outcome. She was saying by 2028, this is back in 2016 or so, she was saying back then, governments of the world need to prepare because by the year 2028, we will have such a food shortage on the planet that they need to start stockpiling back and then in 2016, 17, 10 years in advance to get us through this. And we're rapidly approaching 2028, and here we are with all this discombobulation across all the food because that's the excuse why the supply chains are breaking down. But in reality, if we can't measure value in the same way that we used to for the last 70 years because they know in this cycle of change that the massive changes that are going to be experienced here because of, well, what we go through on these grand solar minimums is going to upset, I say, workings of, let's say, corporations, individuals, banks, companies, etc., that we won't be able to measure value in the same way because there's going to be so much lost. And see, here's what I keep getting at is they keep trying to pull us back. You know, globalization is finished. We're in a deglobalization phase. We're in a consolidation phase of continental scale. Why is that? Well, if you can produce more food on a continental basis and keep it inside the continent, you know, maybe they're kind of firewalling everything off. So the best hope for humanity is to keep the continents by themselves instead of all these extended supply chains around that won't make much sense anyway as we move toward this, what you're talking about, reset. If there aren't shipping companies any longer operating, you're not getting your goods. If the ports are closed for some reason, your goods aren't coming in. If the rails aren't running for whatever reason, then your goods aren't coming. You know, if you're talking about a full supply chain from bits of junk across the ocean from China. So what I'm saying is the old way that our world used to exist and the way we determine value from that world is absolutely not going to work any further from this point. This is why we're seeing the complete substitution of what was the economy into something new. It has to be new. We're entering a new phase. And a lot of what we understand business is going to turn off or be limited. So we can't run the valuations in stock markets any longer the same way we did, because before it was status quo. You knew this thing was going to run for 50 years. Well, we're at that point now. It's going to be, you know, year by year basis if it's still running or not working properly anyway. You know, and then the introduction of AI and all these, and I saw some crazy farm implements that were out there that used to take teams of people with actual drivers, and this whole thing's all autonomous now. Like what you understood, I thought farming would be one of the last things that would be affected from AI. But these newest videos I'm watching, we are so far behind already. You have no idea. It'll make your head spin. Talking about from the planting to the harvesting to the delivering of the good. And I saw one where they were doing dairy cattle where they were running fields of hay and everything was autonomous. It was this machine robot thing that was about the size of an 18-wheeler running with the cutting blades on it, and then it would deliver it back to the cows exactly on time with the right amount of feed exactly in front of each cow. And the whole entire process was automated. You need 50 people before to do that. None, zero. The only people that were there were the ones coding the machine and making sure that the machine was filled with fuel. That was it. There was nobody at the farm. I was shocked. Usually you see it's pretty active when it comes into feed time or milk time. The entire farm was automated, including the growing of the hay, the harvesting of the hay, and the delivery of the hay to those cows. We are not holding on any longer. We are already swept off by the hurricane into something that is beyond our control. Why right now? That's the whole thing. Is this could have been done years ago. The cryptocurrency, the blockchain, not so much Hashgraph, but blockchain. Anything could have been done on stable coins around 2000, when Bitcoin first came out. Why is it taken since 2012 all the way to now? Why right now? Because they needed that extra 10 years of stability when things operated and functioned correctly. But now they're at the point it's not anymore, so it's very visible. They need to get a new system in before this, I wouldn't call it a collapse, I would call it a vast change arrives. And the vast change is here. It's at our door. It's already here. It's evolving, but the intensity of it coming up is the point we're at right now. It's going to overwhelm. I'm just going to play devil's advocate and go with your timeline. And also the October 1st is interesting for me also on the cryptocurrency bull market top in October. I'm not saying it is, but I'm just saying let's pretend. If it is, you're far too late to put any of this into practice. Your only best bet now is to try to accrue silver and cash that could buy your way out or buy supplies. Because if it gets that nasty, other people will be producing things to do side hustle. If you're going to try to bring up a fruit orchard now, you're far too late. I would see even, just in the general sense, if it's not happening in October and you're trying to prep out on your homestead, if you already don't have your chickens in place and if you don't have your orchard up already, it's far too late for you. You're going to be buying from other people that are overproducing. The only possible way to get something that lickety-split would be buy the seeds. You can still do like garden veg stuff. But in terms of like large protein raising, that takes a long time to get it and wire it down. You can do veg, but anything long term, you're already too late. But think about the price of an ounce of silver. I mean, not financial advice, but a huge, huge, huge amount of people that I'm watching and listening to and have respect for in that silver gold arena are talking easily $200 to $300 silver. And then the cash too. Like if there's no cash and the banks are down, things are reset here. There's going to be a minute before they allow you to move that cash. Now, through history, there's never been one time where it just crashed and everything was worthless. They're going to allow you to move that cash into the stable coins because they want you on the system. So during that transition period, your cash will still be usable and valuable until it's not. So, if so most people listening, if you haven't started all this stuff already, you're far too late. So your best bet is your lifeboat of getting things that will be tradable for others that will want whatever you have in hand in terms of money, like I say, gold or silver, maybe tools and seeds to be able to barter, to trade with other people because you just waited way too long to get ready. I know it sounds pessimistic, but that is the best scenario if it were to occur in October. Then you also reminded me of a Bitcoin citadel, or they call them, Bitcoin citadels. There's a few time travelers from the future talked about 1/10 of a Bitcoin, and it'll set you up for life in the Bitcoin citadels. It sounds like if it was a freedom city that would operate on cryptocurrency. A lot of things I've been like Jim Willie's one of my favorites, and he really has delved into a lot of things. And he was saying corporate stablecoin issuance will be a substitute for treasury debt and issuance in the future, where this stablecoin thing is a real thing, and it's probably going to be RLUSD, which is the Ripple Labs US dollar stablecoin. And most of the payments moving forward are going to be on RippleNet, that on-demand liquidity and that instant settlement. Well, I shouldn't say instant. I mean, nothing's really instant, but it's within seconds. And the eventuality of moving over to Hashgraph, because everybody out there listening, this whole thing that you understand with blockchain and stable coins, this is a middle step to get us to Hashgraph. And Hashgraph is real-time monitoring of everything on the planet in real time of everything. But they would need smart dust in the Internet of Things to try to combine these two. But Hashgraph is where we're going. Blockchain's the middle step. But stable coins, 1,000% guaranteed. That's what we're moving to. They're going to have to substitute the old debt, either write it off and issue new debt. But the new debt, the new stable coins, the new money is going to have value with it, because a dollar that we have currently only buys you 4% of what it did in, say, 1913. So you're going to have to bring money back to parity also. So when people think I'm going to get $10,000 swapped out, are you going to get 10 grand swapped of 1913 value? Or are you going to get 10 grand of 2025 value swap out? So they're going to have to reset the system. So at least in my thinking of a gold back, now not all of them are going to be gold backed, but I'm saying if it was a gold backed system swap on a stablecoin basis, that should bring you back to parity of what they were getting in 1913, 14, and 1915 of value, where $1 would buy you 10 cans of soup, 20 Hershey chocolate bars. Go back in the past, there's a huge amount of studies done on what $1 could buy you in, let's say, 1913, 1915, just prior to World War I, compared to what it can buy you now. I think when the reset comes on a new gold-backed, whatever it is, stable coin, however they're going to push this thing out, and we don't have enough gold to really cover everybody in America for $1 backed stable coin with gold. It's going to have to be asset-backed, like real-world asset determination on the value of almost everything in America on an RWA class that could be as the base along with metal, but it's going to have to be something far more than just gold because that won't cover everybody. But as long as there's a physical behind it, now that'll probably last 10 to 20 years before they start to devalue that. But my whole thing is once they reissue, what's the value of the reissuance going to be and what can it buy you compared to what we're holding and using today? If you're going to get a loss at that, if they're going to reissue and it only buys you 50% of what we do today, that's not a good deal. But if they reissue and they give you gold backing to the previous $1 is 100% buying power, I'll take that. But I will say one thing here about the money. My grandparents and my parents were talking about when they were young, they bought a house for $10,000. That's unthinkable for us, like truly, truly unthinkable. Right? Those numbers mean nothing. That's like insane talk. But the money was worth much, much more at that time. You have to realize it was back, way far back, where there was much more value in the buying power of the dollar that hadn't been eroded through inflation every year. So if we're reset back to a gold back where it has 100% of purchase power, we should be back to the point of buying houses for $10,000. Now, when you said you're not going to make 50, 60 grand a year, I 100% agree with that. You're not going to be making 100 grand. You're going to be making back to what it was, making a few $100 a month, 1,000 at most, but they were buying a house for 10,000. So, you start to come back and take the parity of what is purchase value of the dollar itself and then rewind those prices. So when you ask in the beginning, yes, it'll be incredibly deflationary in your mind for what you're so used to, these hyperinflated prices. But when we pull it back to a full gold-backed or asset-backed stablecoin issuance, you're not going to need that much to buy an enormous amount of stuff. So we're going to have to reset our minds on prices too. If you're going to look for a list of coins that are going to be used, as Eric was talking about here, of the approved coins, I guess that's the best way to state it. After the system crash and then you're deciding where it might go, there's going to be approved coins, and they're called ISO 20022 coins. Like ISO, when you like different standards and whatever through manufacturing, you can look at it in any kind of ISO thing and then you just type in ISO. But you want to do the cryptocurrency ones, 20022. Ripple, well, that's XRP. That's Ripple Labs. That's for sure right on the list there. Stellar Lumens, that's going to be the instant payment. We got Hedera, Hashgraph, HBAR. And you just take a look at the list there and see what else is going to be used. Those are, in my opinion, the approved globalist coins after the collapse. Now, here's the thing about Bitcoin, too. All right, so you got all these Bitcoin miners out there. Now, BlackRock's a huge holder. Michael Saylor up at MicroStrategy, 400,000 plus. But if you look at that, there's still a huge amount that's in single hands. And we're coming to the rollover point here where, okay, the exchanges have to have a bunch so they can operate legally. So when they have the liquidity, when people buy, sell. Like we are getting precariously and dangerously close. There's less than 200,000 Bitcoin out there if everybody were to buy. And the market would essentially dry up unless you raise the price enough where people want to loosen it out of their own local wallets from individuals. Because if you look at all the Bitcoin right now, because I jumped through a lot of different kind of investment sites and kind of analysis sites like CoinGlass, there's 60% of all the Bitcoin owned out there is by individuals. Like you might think Michael Saylor with 400,000 is a lot. But once you get up there and you add all theirs together, 400,000 here, 200,000 there, you're barely scraping 6 million Bitcoin. The rest of that is held by individuals. So they would have a chance to possibly have the miners fork off and then old Bitcoin. Again, in the future, if they're going to do what you said and they're going to try to crash the market and extract all the money out of Bitcoin, somewhere along the line, for sure not this year, for sure not next year, they're going to have to accrue enough Bitcoin so they can get the mining pool to fork off and take Bitcoin and fork it to Bitcoin 2.0 or something. But the miners will have to agree on that. But who has that kind of control to control that much Bitcoin to have all the miners then fork to a new coin? With the community the way it is, at least in my opinion, most people would not really want to do that for the globalists unless they, in the future, start to accrue all the mining, like I'm talking Bitcoin mining companies. Like Mara, that's already on. If you start to look at the amount of Bitcoin mining companies, probably like 15 or 20 of them that are listed on the markets here in America. Okay, well, they're producing a substantial amount. But globally, that doesn't include everybody else that's out there. So they have to kind of bring everybody under one umbrella. control all the mining of Bitcoin, and then they could fork the market after they controlled 51% of the entire Bitcoin issuance out there, which if it's 21 million would have to be, what, 10 million, 10,500,001 Bitcoin, and then they could fork off the market. Eric, let me say one thing. The fractional silver right now. Now, if you're looking at, if you're going to buy silver online, and I know a lot of people say, don't do it. They're going to track you. They're going to know where it is. Okay, big whoop. That's why people are saying, don't use Amazon because it's part of the beast system and they're going to know what you bought. Well, dude, you either have a chance right now in the next few months to buy something or you don't get it. So fractional silver, the premiums on the fractional silver are like old constitutional silver, junk silver. A lot of these companies are giving away their constitutional silver with no premium on it. Where if you want to get a 1 ounce round, you're looking at like $4 now for premium, maybe more. But the old junk silver pre-64, issuance quarters, dimes, half dollars, etc. If you have a chance to jump on that, and that's fractional silver as well. And a fractional 1/10 ounce round or a half ounce rounds, damn, you're looking at like $6 premium on that. So it's a way to get fractional silver with no premium. And if you're going to be bartering, you're going to want fractional. I mean, nobody's going to turn it in this time. They've already seen in history when it was stolen and then it was revalued. But again, this is in the 1930s. Like the trust in government was very high for the American people at that point. It was more of a homogeneous society. They were doing it for the good of the government after. You got to realize they were coming out of the Great Depression also. During this time of Great Depression, all this was happening and giving them the promise to monetize the gold so they could come out of the Great Depression. Their lives would get better almost instantly if they gave away their gold. That was a pretty good thing. Like, just give away the gold coins. Hell, you get them for change at the store all the time anyways, because they were using it every day for buying and selling stuff in stores, right? So they got the gold. This time, no, because silver's a monetary metal and it's an industrial metal. Nobody's going to be turning their stuff in this time on the individual. Now, they can come into the ETFs and swoop their vaults. They can come into vaulted silver, gold vaults, and swoop all that out. Governments to go into big places like vaults that are armed guard vaulted areas across the United States is going to be way, way, way easier than going to Eric's house or David's house or John's house or Millie's house and grabbing like $10 worth of silver coins from their grandpa that gave you for birthdays or something. Don't get me wrong, there's going to be an enormous amount of people that believe and drink the Kool-Aid that will turn in everything. They will turn it in. And there will be holdovers out that won't turn it in. But, I mean, the percentage is going to be lower than what they can confiscate through all the centralized, like I say, vaults and repositories. And the brainwashed that will turn in their metals because they were told to, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. And it's going to be too much trouble to try to go door to door for that. No way, man. Especially with the guns here. There's going to be, no. They're not coming to your house to get it. Now, they're just going to rely on the idiots to give it away and confiscation in the big arenas of it. I do have a forecast for you here for the stock crash because, you know, it's so interesting that you put October 1st as the Day of Atonement. So, again, everybody, this is not financial advice, but I wanted to walk you through that because I think it's super important. So, following the crypto markets, we're in the crypto bull run. So, this is the year of the bull run. So, for me, I am trying to correlate stocks, solar activity when there's a CME, if the stock market goes up or down, and also the cryptocurrency markets, again, just on the bull market, and then also following solar activity and the activity in the market a day before, during, and after a CME strikes the planet to see energetically if that changes. So that aside, that's micro. Now, if we come out to the macro, a little bit wider view here, the end of March, which is coming up here in another week or so, all the way until May, like the first week of May, at least a lot of people I've seen and forecasts show an uptrend. Downtrend is going to run to August, like the middle of August. And then from the middle of August, it starts to uptrend again. And at least for the crypto market, around October, it is going to be the top in the crypto market for at least this bull run. And after that, we are coming into a mega crash after that peak top in October. And that matches right up with your October 1st Day of Atonement. With all that said, your prepping is absolutely going to be integral in this. And you know, your financial prepping is also it. There's going to be a commerce. There's going to be things that you can buy and sell if you have the funds. If you don't have the funds, you are going to be at the whim of these dictators to try to jump through their hoops and hurdles. If you have no financial resource and you have no silver, no gold, no cash, no nothing, you go through history. Every time they're going to revalue the currency, they do with the lowest denomination notes first. Well, for us, it's not a note, it's a penny, right? So the nickel is worth 13 cents now, so they're going to start pulling in the base metals out of that. I bet they're going to go away from nickels and dimes next, and we're just going to round to quarters. That's my projection. When they say nickels, you better get ready because the currency reset's going to be so close when they take away the nickel. Because you can't go much more further until you're at the dollar, right? And the reset shall be in. Whether it's a stablecoin reset, which it's got to be because people just don't believe our American debt issuance anymore. So understand two things with this. Your financial prepping needs to come first and foremost also, in addition to getting food and water. If you don't have any resource to be able to buy other things you might need, that is a detriment in itself. But nobody is going to believe if we just take a whop zero off of our money that it's going to be worth something. There's going to have to be a completely new issuance because you can look at Zimbabwe, look at Venezuela, look at Argentina, look at all these things through the past that we've had, Weimar Republic, it just goes on and on, Austria, you just go on and on and on. Turkey, it doesn't matter where you go. Lopping a zero off of your debt or lopping a zero off of your money does not do a single thing except tell everybody, yeah, you have a serious problem. The only way to stop this is to reissue a new currency backed by assets. And whether that's gold or whether it's real estate or whether it's in the ground metals or whether it's whatever, water rights or whatever, as long as there's something behind it. And that's why you're going to look at this real world asset class of cryptocurrencies take front and center stage for the next 2 years. Like I'm making a bold prediction here, but RWAs are going to be the only thing you're going to hear across the news coming at the end of the year this year when they start to reset this and try to tokenize and put value on every single asset across an entire nation or planet. You have to have that kind of backing behind it before people believe it's real again. If you just try to issue something out of nothing again, nobody's going to believe it. See, we've run that course. The next step, you have to issue something that has real value against it. And this is why I'm saying the value of the money might be incredibly low because it's going to be worth 100 times more than our present money. Is that a reissuance and lopping zeros off, or is that a currency reset? Yes, it is, because they're really taking 2 zeros off of your currency value. But they're not going to do it like that because that would spook everybody. So what they're going to do is reissue something that has a higher value, lop 2 zeros off it. It needs to change before it can be believed again. Okay, and one thing about China, when I was over in Asia, the Chinese government has told everybody, if you're buying luxury goods like Chanel and Gucci and these types of shops, that is too bourgeois and your social credit score will decline. You need to go buy gold and silver with your money that you would have spent on a $10,000 or $30,000 handbag. There are lines around the gold shops, and these listed companies that are gold jewelry sellers are like 5xing their revenue right now, boosting up the stock market, but also pulling metals into China, not for the Chinese government, nope, just for the citizens, so then China can come out and demand physical delivery. There's this whole thing going on in China now where it's verboten for you to buy luxury goods any longer. That money must be rediverted into gold and silver purchases to help the government. That's one thing. Second thing, Civilization Cycle podcast, civilizationcycle.com. That's our new podcast. And the Adapt 2030 channel on YouTube, Rumble, and BitChute. And this podcast has been brought to you by TrueLeafMarket.com. Heirloom and organic seeds for any grow zone on our planet. If you support this kind of content, please visit My Patriot Supply and TrueLeafMarket.com. I appreciate you spending your time with us, and I'll see you next interview.